with our vote.
Mr. Speaker.
I call Chris Bishop.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, they used to call that medium-paced trundler for the Black Caps, Gavin Larson, the postman, because he always delivered. And Ron Mark is a bit like that with his speeches. He always delivers. That speech really was extraordinary. It had everything. It had philosophy, quoting Santayana. It had the ode to Helene Ritchie. It had the hubris, the promise from the opposition crossbenchers that a future New Zealand First-led government will bring back health and well-being of the Local Government Act. It had the grandiloquence that always comes with Mr. Mark's speeches. It had the history, the stories of the past, the failed selection attempts or the failed campaigns down in Canterbury, but it simultaneously happened to be very boring at the same time. What an extraordinary speech. Who knows how he does it, Mr. Speaker, but Ron Mark always delivers. Sir, I've been offshore for a few weeks. You in Chatfield, a good Hutt Valley man. You in Chatfield, a good Hutt Valley cricketer. Still playing club cricket. Old Ewan. I played against him for the parliamentary team earlier this year. Great guy. Sir, I've been offshore for a few weeks, and I was eagerly watching the House and wondering what bill I would speak on first when I came back from offshore. And I was wondering, will it be following the redoubtable David Bennett on a finance bill and having to rebut some of the things that Grant Robertson said and having to deal with the things that Grant says to David? Or would it be following Mr. Twyford on a housing bill and listening to the sort of flecked anger that comes across the House? Or would it be the Wellington Town Belt Bill? But it's the Wellington Town Belt Bill that I have to speak on, and it actually is a pleasure because, as I said in the second reading of the debates on this bill, the Wellington Town Belt is a taonga of Wellington, and Wellingtonians probably actually just take it for granted in some ways. They don't probably ever turn their mind to the legal status of the town belt. And as I said on the second reading, it's hard to imagine Wellington actually without that 500 hectares of open space that is available for all Wellingtonians to enjoy. So I want to pay tribute to a few groups and people. I want to pay tribute to Grant Robertson, the local member who has shepherded this bill through. And actually it wasn't until Grant was speaking about the bill that he made reference to Marianne Hobbs. And I wasn't aware that Marianne Hobbs had been, I should have really thought about it. Of course Marianne Hobbs would be involved as the former local member, but also former Minister for the Environment, although that, to be fair, was a slightly unhappy tenure for her, but former Minister for the Environment and a noted lover of green spaces. One of the first rugby matches I ever attended in my life at Athletic Park was with Marianne Hobbs. It was that South African test in 1998 when Carlos Spencer missed about 6 goals in a row, and we lost in that terrible season of 1998. But Marianne Hobbs, old family friend, and I want to pay tribute to her as well, watching, no doubt, from wherever she is at the moment for the work she's done on this bill, and Grant as well. I want to pay tribute to Mayor Celia Wade-Brown as well. Exciting times in Wellington at the moment. I think we're up to 7 declared mayoral candidates for local elections later in the year. Very exciting times with the Labour Party splitting asunder with various candidates, and fair to say the centre-right splitting as well. So anyway, interesting times in Wellington, but Mayor Celia has been a champion of the Wellington Town Belt for many years, and I know has worked with Grant on this bill. I didn't have the pleasure of sitting on the Local Government and Environment Committee, but, well, indeed, as my good colleague Scott Simpson, the chair, points out, for shame. And it was a shame, but look, you can't be everywhere at once. No doubt there were other matters occupying me at the time. I want to pay tribute to the Wellington City Council, Helene Ritchie, who I see here is in the gallery, also the people on the Local Government and Environment Committee who worked really well. Sarah, I was reading some of the history of the Wellington Town Belt just in the preamble to the bill, and I was slightly interested to discover that the Basin Reserve, that famous ground down the end of Cambridge Terrace and Adelaide Road in Wellington, scene of some of New Zealand's greatest sporting triumphs and some of our lowlights over the years as well, sir. I was interested to discover that way back in the day, after the New Zealand Company turned up on the shores of Petone in 1839, sir, that some years after that, the Basin Reserve, along with the Town Belt and the Canal Reserve, so the Basin Reserve was part of the Town Belt by dint of the execution of the Town Belt deed. The three parcels of land were known as the Town Belt, the Canal Reserve, and the Basin Reserve. And of course, over the passage of time, the Basin Reserve has been removed from the Town Belt, which was probably for the best and is governed in other ways. But it's just a fascinating aspect of history, really, that great sporting vista that is the Basin. It's not really even known as the Basin Reserve by Wellingtonians, it's just known as the Basin. And somewhere where I've spent many a summer day on the embankment over the years. It's just interesting to note that it used to be part of the Wellington Town Belt. But just to return to where I started this somewhat rambling speech, just to return to where I started about how the Wellington Town Belt is a treasure. Well, I started with Ron Mark, but look, I don't think any speech that starts with Ron Mark and ends with Ron Mark is going to go down in Hansard as a champion speech. So I'll probably not end my speech by talking about Ron Mark, but I want to end my speech by talking about the subject of the bill, always a novel concept in Parliament on Members' Day, which is the Wellington Town Belt, and talk about what a treasure it is, and talk about how actually most people probably never turn their mind to the legal status of the Town Belt. They never think about the way in which it's governed. They probably never think about the legal niceties. They never think about some of the complications that come with reserves and things like that. They just know that it's there and they want it to be there because every day and every weekend, particularly on the weekends, Wellingtonians, but also people from the Hutt Valley where I hail from and based now, people from further up the Hutt Valley and people from Wairarapa where Alistair Scott hails from, and from Mahariu where Mr Hudson, my colleague sitting here, hails from. They enjoy the Wellington Town Belt and all of its munificent glory. And sir, it's great that we have unanimity in the House tonight in the passage of this very important piece of legislation.
The next call is a split call. I call James Shaw.